All right. Good stuff. Well, I want to welcome you all to the Women Veterans Alliance, our Wednesday webinar taking place here today. And I am Melissa Washington. I am the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance. And again, so glad that you're all here today. If you're not familiar with Women Veterans Alliance, we're a nationwide organization with our mission is to connect you, the woman veteran, with each other and resources. And we do that through one of our things is our Wednesday webinar, and we've got a whole bunch of webinars planned, and I'm going to share with you some of the webinars that we have upcoming as well. But in addition to that, we've got a lot of great resources on our website. We have a store online, and there's just a lot of great resources. If you're looking for work, we can help you out. If you're looking to start a business, we can help you out. If you're looking just to get connected with others, that's what we are here to do. And a great way to connect with us is on social media. Facebook, we do have a private Facebook group in addition to a Facebook page. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll find this recording and our previous webinars as well. Also, too, if you're interested in becoming a Women Veterans Alliance member, you can do so on our website. And just click on the join button. And our membership does help us keep events like these and other events at no cost to you. If you haven't heard, we have launched a new magazine, a Women Veterans magazine. We've launched the California edition. It's already out in print, and it's also available digitally. And if you wanted more information, you can go to womenveteransmagazine.com. And if you are in Texas, Florida, or the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, we are working on those magazines right now. So if you would like to have your photo on the cover, submit articles if you're an author from that state. So again, if you're interested in having your photo, we just need you to be either from that state or had been stationed in that state or currently living there. So just some type of tie to those states. And if you happen to be in California, the greater Sacramento area, on March 23rd, we are having the launch party for the California edition. So what do we have upcoming? We've got some fantastic webinars scheduled. We just had our first one last week. If you missed it, you missed Sandy Adams from the Military Women's Memorial. She gave us a fantastic history of women in the military and talked about the memorial. That is available on the YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking that out. So you see we've got next week coming up, we've got Sean Barnwell talking about leadership is about behavior. And we've got Dr. Paris Lev coming up. She's done one of our webinars before, and she's got great information telling us how to navigate clutter without losing your sanity. And we've got Shonda Thompson coming up. Who are you? The pursuit of authenticity through your personal branding. And just let everybody know that that specific webinar is not on a Wednesday. It's going to be on a Monday, as I had to make a shift as I have to fly out to Purdue University. I'm on their Military Family Council, and I'm going to be out there for that. And we also have another partnership with EEOC, and if you're not familiar, it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And they reached out to us, and we are hosting a webinar for them to talk about disabilities, veterans, and the EEOC. So it's a must not miss event, and that is on Tuesday, which will be at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on August 29th. So that's what we've got upcoming, a lot of good stuff coming up. And you can find our webinars on the webinars page, is also on our online calendar as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my friend, Annie Emprima-Martin. I've known her for several years now, and I'm very happy to have her. She was also at our unconference in October when we were in Las Vegas, and she had a session which was extremely well received by all of the women who were able to spend some time one-on-one with Annie. She is a mom, Army veteran, startup angel investor, and trained metaphysician. In 2016, Annie deployed to Kuwait with the Army National Guard as the non-commissioned enlisted of a brigade support operations finance section, traveling to Iraq, Qatar, and Jordan. She is the chairwoman for the State of Nevada Women Veteran Advisory Committee. She holds a doctorate in metaphysics and graduate level in positive psychology. She uses her knowledge of psychology and quantum capabilities to guide people toward clarity. Her research studies include the impact of emotions on body and mind, the link of neuroanatomy to physic capabilities, and is it ethereal armor? Ethereal armor?
Ethereal.
So, ethereal armor. All these big words here.
Big words. Sorry.
Woo, all right. Well, I'm glad I went through that slow, because if I went through fast, I would have really messed that up. So, Annie, I am so glad you're here, and I'm so looking forward to all of the great things that you're going to share with us. And for those of you who do have questions, put those in the chat. And I know Annie will definitely be able to answer all of your questions here. So, Annie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to you, and you will be able to share your screen and share all the great information that you've got to share.
Okay, let's bring mine up. Okay, so we're going to be talking about conscious connections. And what I do is I work in the metaphysical arena, but I work almost overlapping neurology, neuroscience. How does the nervous system impact and stand on both spiritual and biological, the two different worlds of belief systems. So the science to the spiritual, that middle ground, that centerpiece, that bridge is where I work. So we're going to be talking about exploring who we are from the inside out. And I'm going to be bringing a lot of studies today. And it's really about how we view the good life, because that's the goal, right? What's the good life to us? It doesn't mean that it's in a Pollyanna form, but it does mean that we're not struggling and suffering the way we may be currently. So let's take a look at that. So in this unilome, this is a Buddhist unilome, and it's the path to enlightenment to Buddhist. It's also my logo. So we're going to use that just for examples, for an example. So when we look at caught in chaos, when we look at people, we tend to think, okay, it's addictions and codependency, it's high drama, trauma, financial distress, lost identity. It can be a whole thing, but this is a spectrum, right? So we might not be like so deep in chaos, but with the work that I do in the life coaching arena, what I find is that internally, our internal dialogue is chaotic. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. I don't need anybody else's help. Like, people are not reliable. I can do this myself. I'm ultra independent. This is also part of chaos in our mind. The opposite is the good life. And we're going to be talking about how thoughts matter, words matter, and friendships matter through this. So at any time, I think I can see, I think there's a way for me, or if Melissa, if you could let me know if anyone raises their hand in Zoom, and feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm going to jump through the first couple slides just to kind of create the baseline, and then we're going to get into some good stuff. So the good life isn't living a Pollyanna life and pretending that the world is not chaotic, right? There's always going to be chaos, whether it was when we served, or today, or in Ukraine, or in anywhere in the world. There's always going to be chaos, but it's how we move through the chaos that really matters. This is the place where there's low to no stress, there's low to no drama, there's enough money, or there's more than enough money. Our inner child is honored, we get to play. Right? As grown women, we underestimate the value of playing. It is a powerful way for our nervous system to relax and for our creative mind to be activated, honored, and expressed. The wholehearted and authentic living is super powerful. And as we go through, I'm going to be talking about some different things. But with women, what I find is that the throat, the thyroid, and the digestive system are one of the most impacted areas in our body, because we're not living authentically. We're living in a way that we think is safe or under the radar, but in the swallowing of our beliefs, our desires, our wishes, and this is collective. Look, if one of you is like, that's not me, I'm just speaking collectively, we lose our authentic power because we swallow what we want to say instead of speaking it. And that creates a lot of discourse in our body. And so when I'm working with people, I work in the rouleau, sort of that third pillar of mind, body, spirit. I work on that spirit side. So whether we call it soul or spirit or human energy, nervous system, they're really all referring to very similar things. When I'm working in that space, we have to honor the mind, the psychology, the body, the anatomy, and we have to honor how the mind and the body are impacted by our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So for those that are familiar with Shonda Rhimes, she's the creator of Grey's Anatomy, Inventing Anna. She uses this word called hum. And this is when she's doing what she loves to do. She's being herself. She's creating. She's in her hum. And this is the most powerful creative space we can be in. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi uses the word flow. Flow is like when time stops because you're enjoying yourself. That's flow. When we're in those spaces, our body can heal better. We're not constricted. Our nervous system isn't heightened. We're not on microadrenaline. We're in a place of peace. And that's a powerful, powerful place, especially for women. Marie Kondo talks about joy, sparking joy. And there's other books that reference the gifts of gratitude. David Meltzer, who's a sports multimillionaire for sports training mindset. He talks about gratitude, the power of gratitude. So the good life is really whatever it means to you. For some people, it's a little cabin in the woods. For other people, it's having their 25 grandchildren around them. For me, I would be in heaven to own a helicopter. It's all relative. The only way we can go from chaos to clarity is by walking through this messy middle. There's no way around it. You cannot circumvent the process. And I find this with my clients all the time. They want to avoid their traumas, but go play in the big sandbox in the metaphysical arena and understand energy in a very different way. Well, we can't because everything's interconnected. We can't avoid trauma and then play with energy in a different way. Trauma first. We got to clear out the stuff that's weighing us down or change our belief systems. That's the only way through them. And this is what it looks like. It is not a pretty straight line between A and B. It is a Brillo path to get there. So for those that are not, actually, I want to go back. I want to go back to chaos. So when we look at chaos, and I'm going to touch on it a little bit later in the talk too, chaos can look on the outside super pretty, like we all have it all together, but inside we might be in a marriage that lacks love and connection. It could be the internal battles that we have with, let's say, different VA ratings that we might carry. Those things can create that internal chaos in our mind. And then when we come to Hebb's rule, or Hebbian theory, or Hebb's theory, or whatever we may want to use, you can use the Hebbian rule. They all mean the same thing. It's all based on Donald Olding Hebb's theory that goes back to 1940s. And it's where we hear this in the spiritual arena. You might hear neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more we think about something being true, the more our neurosynaptic pathways create the highways to make it true. Like that confirmation bias is, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. Well, then we start to develop neural pathways, like highways for energy. They start to create highways that have signs that say and validate, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not enough. That's all because of how we think. So our thoughts matter. And if we're saying, I'm not good enough, then we then send that message from our brain to our body, down our spine, so the metropolis of our head, down the major highway of our spine, through the subhighways of our nervous system, and then into the suburbs of our fascia. All of that electrical networking travels with that message. It's like we get a ticket from the toll booth, and now we're carrying around that ticket that says I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And we keep moving. on these highways, and it runs into our whole body. So the work that I do, the research that I do is contradicting arthritis being genetic, or spinal injuries being, spinal pain being genetic, or certain diseases and disorders being genetic. And my research is supporting that these are really based on traumas that created thoughts, that created rules, that created execution in our body. So when doctors or people tell us that it's all in our head, they might be saying it to be rude, but it is very much true. Our brain carries so much power. And when it's operated by our consciousness, it's one of the most powerful things we have on this planet. So I'm going to touch on this. I want to touch on it a little bit quickly, because this is really this one slide in itself is an hour-long presentation. But it's really about changing our perspective on how we use language in our brain. And what I will tell you across the board, people will say, oh, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. And I start having sessions with them, and we peel back the layers, and you will find that there are undertones of this in everyone. Even the most powerful executives that I work with, the highest CEOs that make multi-million dollars a year, when we get through those layers, there's a piece of them that plays in this arena, this red arena versus the green arena, from a rule that started when they were 5 or 10 or 20, whatnot, that little piece is blocking them from thriving in the way that they want to grow in their business or in their life. So if we look at internal and external power, internal is what we give ourselves, the power that we give ourselves, and external is what we allow other people. We allow their power into us. And this may not seem like it fits your life, but there's probably something very powerful in here hiding that will unlock as we go. The left side is the Karpman drama triangle. This is where we have a victim, a persecutor, and a rescuer. There's always these three roles dancing in this do-si-do of the individual. So say myself, if I play the role of the victim, there has to be a persecutor. Somebody had to have done something to me for me to become the victim. Now, this is where women come in, and especially parents, moms. We want to be the rescuer. And the rescuer isn't always going and taking care of our children. Sometimes the rescuer is helping our friends when they're fully capable of helping themselves. Sometimes the rescuer is doing it for someone, even when they're fully capable of doing it themselves. The rescuer is also saying that they're not good enough. It translates. And if you follow Brené Brown or the Karpman drama triangle or psychology, the rescuer is the one that says, I'm going to go do this for you because I want the pat on my back, and I want to be congratulated for fixing something that you could have done yourself. And it creates fraudulent friendships. So if you jump to help your friends, but you don't let your friends come and help you, that is a fraudulent friendship. It's not based on mutual respect and vulnerability. And this is super common with women, super common, that we want to let we will be the first ones to help other people, but not the first ones to raise our hands when we need help. And a lot of it gets developed in the military, right? It's like not safe to ask anybody else for help because it can backfire. The opposite is the empowerment dynamic. And the empowerment dynamic was created by David Emerald Waldorf, and he wrote a book about the empowerment dynamic. So instead of a victim, you're a creator, that you created this is your world, this is your environment, your choices brought you here. And instead of the persecutor that does the wrongdoing, the challenger is the one that presents the lesson or the series of lessons. And instead of the rescuer doing it for someone, that might be the friend or the coach that holds space while we walk through it. They say, I trust you to figure it out, and I'm going to hold space for you and let you be uncomfortable and let myself be uncomfortable watching you be uncomfortable because I know you're going to figure it out. And that changes the dynamic of the world around us from adapting to our environment to belonging in our environment. This quote from Carl Jung, everyone carries a shadow, and the less, let me move my, oh, hang on, move my speaker thing. The less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. So the more we try to be in denial of that, or we push it in the back, or we swipe left on it, whatever that is, it doesn't go away. It just kind of waits. And this is where we see people that may have served 10, 20 years ago, but then suddenly PTSD symptoms are kicking in now. And they're like, it can't possibly be from my military service. It can't possibly be from my childhood. It can't possibly be from my marriage or my car accident that was 20, 30 years ago, because it's just happening now. Well, PTSD is a funny thing, isn't it? It can pop up. It pops up when it wants to pop up, not necessarily when it's convenient to pop up or right when the event happened. And it's because it kind of got pushed aside, and it got pushed aside until it grew so big that it could no longer be aside and it had to be in front of us. So I did a talk back in October in Utah at Zion National Park for a women's retreat. And I had people, I gave them a blank sheet, fill in the blank. And I asked them, how many masks do you wear? And I thought they would have written down 3, 5. After this talk, which was a little bit longer than this one, people had spent enough time to identify that they were wearing 15 different masks, these women. It was the mask of being a mom, a wife, a sister, a daughter, a business owner, or an employee. It was the mask of being in their work, like much like me. When I'm working one-on-one with people, I have to wear a mask in the sense that I can't present my own daily inconveniences at work. So I have to kind of put on a mask. If we are a police officer, or if we're in a place where it's not safe, parole officers, probation officers, police officers, whatever that may be in the civilian world, when we're wearing those masks, sometimes we have to do it because for safety purposes, we can't show vulnerability because it would increase our safety, the safety level, the risk levels. And so think about how many masks you wear and how much time it takes to switch from one mask to another. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what that means. When I was studying positive psychology, and I point to the books on my shelf like that has any power. When I was studying positive psychology, one of the things we learned about was the time lapse. So the time it takes to switch from being, let's say, a corporate employee to coming home and being mom or wife. It takes about 30 minutes for men. And it takes about an hour for men, and it takes about 30 minutes for women to switch, which is why a lot of people enjoy the commute home. It allows them time to decompress, switch hats, and come in a more fluid way. But sometimes we don't have that time, and we have that collision because one mask had to switch for another mask, and we didn't have any downtime to make it a smooth transition. So what is the cost of wearing masks? Now this quote, I'm going to move my little speaker window again. This quote is from the movie World's Greatest Dad. So this wasn't Robin Williams speaking of himself. This was a quote from the movie. But when I saw this quote, it was around the time when I was in Kuwait. There were thousands of people in Camp Arif Jan, and my world was crumbling around me. And I saw this quote come up. I don't even know if I watched the movie while I was deployed, but I thought, here I am on this installation in a unit of almost 300 people, 250 to 300 people. And not a single person knows that I'm in the middle of what I call a spiritual awakening, where things were just happening. My intuition was heightened. Things were awakening. And I couldn't speak that to anyone. I couldn't speak that to a chaplain. I couldn't speak it to a mental health professional. I couldn't tell my friends because I really didn't even know what was happening to me. And I thought how painful it felt to be on an installation where there's thousands of people around me and not a single person notices that I'm in distress. And that hit me really hard. That was the beginning of the journey of the work I do now. So what I learned in my own journey was that I had to shift viewing life. I had to shift to viewing life as a series of experiences necessary for growth. So when I stopped playing the victim role, the why is this happening to me? Because it's a very natural thing, and I'm going to justify it because I went through it. It's natural for us to be there, but it's not the most powerful place for us to be. And that's a hard shift. And hang on, I'm gonna go back on my speaker screen. That's when I came back from deployment, I started really paying attention to Brené Brown's work and paying attention to vulnerability and courage and the heart, shame and guilt and the power of those things, which, by the way, carrying shame, whether it's for, I will say things in a way that will be filtered if they go to YouTube, abortion, grape, we take out the first letter of that word, hard choices that we make, that those choices don't come without consequences. And sometimes those consequences are shame. And shame, when left in a body long enough, is the same kind of execution or the same order that's placed as hospice. So shame can shut the body down. It just takes a whole lot longer than something like cancer. It will destroy the body in a slow path and bring people to a place of immobility, either mentally, physically, or emotionally. But when we recognize that we have to have courage, and the only way to get to courage is by walking through vulnerability, it changes the way we see the journey. So remember that journey from chaos to clarity, that messy middle. This is what we need. Courage and vulnerability are ingredients for that journey. And the best way to take that journey is with this kind of armor. Armor that provides emotional, social, or other defenses. And where do we find that? Typically, friendships. So I want to talk to you about a study that started back in 1938. And this is a TED Talk. You can look up Robert Waldinger TED Talk. It'll come up. And it's What Makes the Good Life. Lessons from the longest study on happiness. And what they did was they looked at really powerful things. Since 1938, it was just men at the time, because men were only allowed at Harvard at the time when they started the study. And then it spread to the families of those Harvard graduates, and then the grandchildren, the spouses, and so on. So they've been studying this for a very long time. And there's three really powerful conclusions that come from it. Three biggest lessons on happiness. And this is where connections really matter, right? Thoughts matter, words matter, the words we speak, how we view ourselves. Are we thinking of ourselves as being good enough, big enough, powerful enough, strong enough, worthy enough, whatever that may be? Are we enough? Then we look at the words. Are we using words that make us a victim, or are we using words that give us the power to create? And then our actions. And our actions come in what we see in this study. So the three biggest lessons that we learn, one, most powerful by far, was that social connections are really good for us and that loneliness kills. So at any given time, 1 in 5 people reports being lonely, which coincides with the same statistic that in any given time, 1 in 5 people report having a mental health issue or crisis or diagnoses. 1 in 5. So loneliness, we know through studies, through Harvard studies, through multiple studies, that loneliness kills. Loneliness prevents us from having the serotonins, the oxytocins, the endorphins that provide the natural antidepressants. That human connection is incredibly powerful for our well-being. And then going back to that quote from the movie with Robin Williams, we know it can be lonely in a crowd and you can be lonely in a marriage. So the second biggest lesson that they found in this study was that it wasn't just about the number of friends you had, it was about the quality of the friendships. That mattered most. Living in the midst of conflict or chaos is really bad for our health. High conflict marriages without much affection turned out to be devastating to our health, perhaps worse. And they say this in the study, he says it in the TED Talk, worse than getting a divorce. In the midst of good, warm relationships, that protection provides us a sense of safety, which allows our nervous system to relax, which allows the information to move through our nervous system in a more effective way, which allows our body to self-heal. It's all connected. Mind, body, spirit, it's all connected regardless of our belief systems. The third biggest lesson that we get from this is that relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect the brain. Being in a securely attached relationship to another person in your 80s gave you stronger resistance to things like dementia, memory loss, brain inflammation. People, when they felt secured and that they could count on the other person, they experienced later memory decline than their counterparts that didn't have that same sense of safety and connection. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not in a good marital relationship, you can have roommates, you can have close friendships, you can have siblings, whatever that is to you, having a healthy relationship where you can count on someone is incredibly powerful, super powerful. And so I want to close out this portion and I want to go into like a Q&A area and talk about some of the things that I've experienced and how that may impact you on a personal level. So I want to take just a couple more minutes in this, and then I want to go into talking to the audience. So here are some thoughts that I leave with, is that with what I've shared, and there's so much more to talk about, and this is like really my passion to talk about this. You can't get to strength without courage, and you can't get to courage without vulnerability. So if we're not willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, I might need some help, or hey, here are my emotions, I'm scared of sharing them because I've been hurt before, or hey, I can't do this myself. Those vulnerable moments, while we might think they make us weaker, they actually help us build stronger friendships and relationships. They create better ties when they are reciprocated by the other person as well. Now, if it's one directional, not healthy, but if two people are willing to be vulnerable with each other in a healthy way, that solidifies the tie in a much more powerful way, much more powerful. So remember, you can't get to courage, you can't get to strength without courage, you can't get to courage without vulnerability. And then my number one in my work, in my field with my clients, curiosity. Be curious, super curious, super curious. If you feel an ache in your body, as silly as it may sound, tap into that area. If it's in your hip or your knees or your chest, if there's anxiety, why are you here? Are you trying to tell me a message, right? So if we shift our perspective into lessons, let's look at this as a lesson. So if there's anxiety, why are you here? When did you arrive? Do you have a message for me? And as silly as that sounds, what it does is it breaks state in our mind, for one. It interrupts the loop, internal dialogue loop. Two, it brings that sense of curiosity. So it lets your mind say, oh yeah, why are you feeling that? Why are we feeling that? Why is that there? And then it has to go find the answer. So that's a second step with how our brain works. The third step is that when we connect our body to our mind, and this is something I teach, it's on my YouTube video, I have a YouTube video showing, when we connect mind to body, we get the answers of what's going on a lot faster, and we clear them a lot faster, and then we don't have to go to the doctor as much, or nearly at all. So it's really powerful to be curious and ask why, and come from a place of, can I learn something from this moment? And you'll find the answers will surprise you. So 3, find your tribe, find your sisterhood, find your connections, find the people that bring you the greatest amount of joy, because joy heals. The vibration of joy and peace and love. Just if we look at emotional hurts in measurement, shame is incredibly heavy. When we look at shame, we typically see addiction, codependency, lack, in multiple facets. When we look at joy and love and gratitude and peace, they tend to be people who have abundance in their life. So the power of these words in our brain changes the outcome of our reality. 4, embrace that messy middle. That is like the power space. That is the funnest part when I'm working with people. That's the funnest part to walk people through, is they realize that they don't have to be where they were, and that block or that thing that they're trying to achieve, that goal that they want, that they feel like there's a giant wall, concrete wall between them and the goal, that when we walk through that middle, we realize we don't need to have that wall. We can walk around it. And that comes with embracing the willingness to be messy of our learning journey. Another study that came out, I think it was by Harvard about a year or two ago, it found that chasing purpose over passion was more powerful. Purpose says it does not have to be the greatest, beautiful, most funnest thing that we do. Chasing purpose says that this has meaning to us and it's fulfilling even when it's not fun, right? Like we might all dream or aspire to be something big, but that doesn't mean that the example that I use with a male audience would be, or a female athletic audience, of people might enjoy playing basketball or football. That doesn't mean they're going to be professional national players. It just means they're going to enjoy the sport. Taking calculated risks is another thing that I've learned in my journeys, is that people who are willing to take calculated risks achieve their goals a lot faster. And people who are not willing to take calculated risks really don't achieve their goals at all. There has to be that bit of vulnerability that comes with stepping forward to the unknown. I work a lot in the metaphysical arena. So not only, I work in neuroscience and psychology, but I also work in that spiritual side, the very esoteric, immeasurable, harder to run research data on, that very, very fringe world of metaphysics and spirituality, of spiritual gifts and energy systems and the energy field outside of us, and how do we interact as magnetic energy with each other. I work way out there in that fringe too. And what I have found is that 99% of the things we fear either don't really exist or they're misunderstood. So the things that we think are super scary in life, we're afraid to take that risk. We're afraid to jump. What if I don't do that? And we get to the other side and we realize why. When we get through that storm, we look back, like, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't, I made it to be this monstrous thing, and it wasn't. So that's a big thing. If we can take from that, of challenge your fear. What is it that you're afraid of, and challenge it? Why is it there? And see what comes. So I'm gonna leave with this last one, and this is a quote by Marianne Williamson. It isn't the entire quote before I go into the Q&A, but these are 2 paragraphs of her poem. And it's the poem called Our Deepest Fear. And she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And then in the 3rd paragraph of her poem, it says, your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And so I'm going to stop the share. Okay, come back. So my challenge for you, for everyone here, what I ask is that you come in with courage, you challenge your fears, you take calculated risks, and for nothing else that I've said so far, stop playing small. This is across the board. Stop playing small. So I'm going to open it up for questions, and we can ask, if you want to ask questions about what we talked about, or if you want to ask questions just about like the spectrum of science and psychology to the fringe unknown world that exists out there, we can chat about any of that. Does anyone
Annie, this is Twyla Rochelle. I like what you said about stop playing small. That I'm actually pausing just to think about that phrase, because I'm thinking about how I put everything above me and everything and everyone else's causes. But I guess when in regards to myself or things that would benefit me, I tend to marginalize the importance of it. And so this for me is good. So thank you. Now you've got me, stop playing small. Thank you, Annie.
And bring that, Twyla, bring that into here, into that solar plexus zone right at the bottom of your rib cage. Take your dominant hand and put it here. And tell this space that you vow to stop playing small. Tell me what happens. What does your body do?
Okay. I vow to stop playing small.
Can you feel that shift in your energy? The blood pressure?
Yeah. Feel like everything swelled up, and then it was like a balloon, just kind of like.
Side note, did anybody, like, the power of breathing? 80% of weight loss comes through breath. 80% of mental health healing comes through our breath. Like, breathing is incredibly important, not just for survival, but for healing. Now take that energy, bring it down into your toes.
Okay.
Tell your feet to stop playing small.
Stop thinking small. My toes are tingling.
Yeah. Tell your fingertips. Because when we play small in our mind, we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we're whatever that is, other people are valued higher than we are. When we have that internal dialogue, energetically, we pull in our power, which means we're more susceptible to neuropathy. We're more susceptible to nail fungus, some of the things that would exist here, because we don't have full movement, energetic movement into all of our, all of the appendages. A lot of our physical discomforts, disorders, and diseases stem back to emotions. Not all. I mean, if we stand near burn pits, that's clearly chemical exposure. But the majority of the ailments that we experience started off as emotions. All right. So who is it that has the Arnold?
Yeah, my name's Linda.
Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hi. So I'm the one that added the comment about Spiritual Awakenings International. I actually know a number of veterans that had spiritually transformative experiences. So there's a lot of information there that would help others feel comfortable with sharing something that happened to them. But I wanted to share my reaction as I heard you talking. I was very active with a veteran service organization. And then I had a difference of opinion with some of the other officers. And I walked away, and unbeknownst to me, is they wrote to the next higher authority with a letter of complaint that I be withdrawn from their membership. It just kept snowballing, but boy, was I feeling vulnerable. I was feeling so small. I was feeling shamed. And, did a lot of the self-assessment as you've discussed today. And I came to find out that those people serving at state level commanders, they're only a couple of years older than me. They don't have a wealth of experience and knowledge beyond my life, And I started reaching out to their contemporaries, if a state commander or a VSO is going to treat me wrong, let me see what his contemporaries think about that. I don't have to cower in a corner and be a victim. I can reach out and affirm what I think is the right thing to do. But boy, it's hard. I feel
it's
so
messy,
lonely.
right?
It is messy.
There is no VIP pass to the front of the line of clarity. We got to walk through it.
And I'm hitting about 50-50 rate of finding 50% of the people I've reached affirm that my perception of things are probably closer to being correct than what my department commander is saying. So
Yeah.
just got to seek a resolution, but it's hard to seek new friends that you've never met.
Of course. Yeah.
So I just encourage others to do that if they see something that needs to be corrected.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mispronounce it, I think. Schwa. Oh, unmute.
Unmute. Okay.
Oh, muted again. Push your space bar if you're on your computer and hold it. No, or hit the microphone. Hit the little microphone in the bottom.
Okay.
You might
how's
not
that?
see. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, terrific. Sorry about that. So my name is Phyllis Schwartz.
Oh, got it.
Right. And for those who may not have, I think I just sent it to you, Annie, but
Yeah.
my professional background is in human resources. I've been doing it for, can you believe it, 40 years. And I'm about to retire. During my spiritual awakening, I found that I had a gift for etheric bodywork.
Yeah.
And esoteric, etheric healing.
Yep.
It comes into my life sometimes even when I am not conscious of it. I can be in a crowded room of people and my hands will immediately become hot and tingly. My prayer when that happens simply is, please direct this energy to whom it is designed for and let them achieve the highest good for their greatest good. But now that I'm about a year out from retiring, I want to know from your experiences, if you'd be willing to share, what does one do to really start a professional practice in this space?
So I had to walk through that journey of what felt super crazy, right? We go through that.
Mhm.
And then it's sort of that hero's journey. I have to accept that I have the capability of working with energy and it's not mainstream. So I had to have like the anger, the denial, the acceptance, like I'm going through grief of my
Mhm.
old life.
Mhm.
And then what I found is that I got put in, and I have a little cold. So if you want like
No,
my
it's fine.
sinuses, I'll pop in a cough drop in a minute. Talk about beliefs, right? I'm just going to pause for a second, talk about beliefs. So in my head, anytime I work too hard, I get sick. That was my
Yes.
rule. Like you work too many
Yes.
hours, you don't take a break, you're going to get sick.
Right.
I worked. I like right now, I'm so booked. Like I'm booked 5.5 weeks out right now. You can't get an appointment until end of April. So I've just been doing like 7-8 days a day for 7 days without a break. And my brain was like, hey, you've been working a lot of hours, you're going to get sick. And I was like, I can't stop. I can't put these people in. If I cancel, I can't put them in April. So I kept going and I got sick because I had a rule in my head that said, if you work too many hours, you're going to get sick.
Right.
So I got sick because of my own rule. I did this to myself. So going back to answering your question, what I found is that when I don't advertise at all. My practice, I $0 to advertising. I use TikTok exclusively. And what I found is that when I followed where I felt guided to go and I honored it, like it sounded crazy. I was like, I don't want to be on TikTok. Like that's for little kids. Like who wants to be on TikTok? Well, turns out all of my clients between the ages of 30 and 70 found me on TikTok. So again, a rule in my head was that adults with adult jobs don't go to TikTok. That was the rule.
Mhm.
And I was very abruptly surprised that that rule was incorrect.
Mhm.
So here's the quickest story is I felt I had friends that were like, you need to be on this app called at the time it was the peak of the not the peak, it was January of 2021.
Mhm.
And this app called Clubhouse came out. And I kept fighting it. Like, I don't want to be on Clubhouse. I don't want to be on this app. I don't want to play this game. This isn't what I do. I work in person. I work one-on-one. I don't need to have clients internationally, which, by the way, currently I have 14 countries. I have clients in
Wow.
Europe, Australia, and the Americas, North and South. But in my head, I was like, I don't want that. I want to like meet people in person. I want to work with them one-on-one. I want to have this little practice. And I go to Clubhouse during a pandemic when no one else had anything else to do because Canada is shut down. Most of Europe was shut down. Australia was on lockdown. Where were they? They were on Clubhouse. So I showed up, I did my thing, and I realized I didn't need to do it in person. So letting the universe or God, whatever our beliefs are, let the synchronicities come, follow the omens, if you will.
Yes.
I show up and I'm thinking, I'm just going to do this for my friend because my friend Mel insisted I go here. And I show up and it turns out that a lot of my friends that had professions were on Clubhouse at the time. Now it's not the same. And I just boomed. And then
Wonderful.
Christmas Day, I didn't do TikTok lives. That wasn't my thing. That was like, what am I going to talk about? Christmas Day, I'm wrapping gifts for my son. He was with his dad for Christmas holiday. And I get this voice like, go do a live on TikTok. Like, I don't want to do a live. I'm having a dialogue. Like, I'm arguing with the voice in my head. Go do a live. I don't want to do a live. Go do a live. So I go on and I felt like it was like somebody that was committing suicide. And, you know, sometimes when you pray, you just get first available. I was first available. Like the bat phone rang. I picked it up and like, what's the problem?
Right.
I show up on TikTok. I ended up doing a 3-hour healing. Which coincidentally, TikTok records all lives. This one live did not record. There was an error in the recording, right? Talk about like divine intervention. I'm on for 3 hours and I'm like, I don't know who's meant to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here, but I feel like somebody was praying to God for help for suicide. And I thought, surely one person would put their hand up and say it was me. Seven people said me. So I saw me, and I'm like,
Unbelievable. That's
right?
fantastic.
Confirmation.
Yes.
So I have been doing TikTok lives since December of this past year. And one of my wishes was to be booked out 3 weeks in advance, like to have 3 weeks booking on my schedule. So the universe didn't only answer my prayer, God, universe, didn't answer my prayer. I showed up to help other people. And in doing so, this year is already like a madhouse and I'm 5.5 weeks out in my schedule. So, right. So here, the longest answer to your thing is,
no, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Follow your internal compass and let it develop, because I would never have put in my business plan to have this happen and to be TikTok to be my exclusive social media platform.
Right.
And my sole source of clients, TikTok, like that would never have been on my dashboard of things I want to do. And yet here we are. So,
terrific.
and it's
That's
also
wonderful.
putting me in this giant place now where I'm through this journey. It also took me on other paths of working with people that have dissociative identity disorder, fibromyalgia, thyroiditis, all these mystery ailments that psychiatrists, psychologists, and medical doctors don't know enough about. They want to manage it, but they don't know how to treat it. It's because it's falling in my lane. So now I'm getting all these people with these disorders and diseases that are really energy based.
Yes, they are.
And not so much genetic. So I have a video on YouTube now showing someone's entire journey in dissociative identity disorder and the final integration of not having that disorder anymore, captured on YouTube.
I'm going to look for it. Thank you so much.
Follow the omens. Yeah. Yeah. So anyone have any other questions or contributions to the conversation? It's very quiet.
Hey, Annie, can you put your contact information or in
Yeah.
the chat? But I will also, when I send out the link to the recording, I will also include her contact information there as well.
I can do that. Yeah, I'll put my signature block. I thought it was on my final slide and I noticed that when I close out. Oh, that's a lot.
So Melissa, we had an ambassadors meeting for the Women's Memorial on Saturday, a Zoom. And Jan spoke about your magazine and spoke very highly, and she was very impressed with it. And she was
Thank
happy
you.
with the copy you'd sent her and everything. So you may get some more feedback on that, because we had people from all over the United States on our call. We had about 40 or 50 people on that call on Saturday.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're
And
welcome.
And Annie, I see you've got your contact info for all of those, her email, phone number. And she is on Pacific time. Always have to tell people, you know, where we're at.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, I'm on TikTok a lot. So if you follow me on TikTok, you'll be able to go into the group healings that I do. You'll be able to go into the one-on-ones where people come up and they'll come up and they'll say this, they'll just say, I can mentally scan people with an like MRI scan. So I have a lot of metaphysical tools in my toolbox. I can scan people, see where their hiccups are in their system. And there's some videos that are going to be going to YouTube shortly where people will say, I've had this back pain for 40 years. I go in and I'm like, yeah, it's in your T4. They're like, yeah, it's in the T4. And I'll tell them what's coming up, and you just see them cry. So those moments, you can watch them firsthand, because it's really hard to believe when you hear it, but it's really hard to deny it when you're watching it happen live and you watch the person have a reaction. Yeah.
This is fantastic, Annie. Thank you so much for this. And
Yeah,
again,
you're welcome.
her contacts info's there. It also go out in the email if you're not able to capture it right now, and feel free to connect with Annie. And thank you again, all, and everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.